Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppers, today trying some darker lager beers from Franconia from Brauerei Wagner in Merkendorf. And we're trying their Kupferstich Rotbier and their Wagner Dunkel. So a Nürnberg style Rotbier and a Dunkel lager, which is also kind of like a Bavarian tradition. So the Nürnberger Rotbier is 4.9% and the Dunkel lager is 5.5%. So Munich Dunkel, a style that used to be not my favorite at all, but having great examples, I really enjoy the style. At least some examples. So I remember, like, in general, brown beer for me in the past was a bit like, unless it was like big, strong imperial stuff. I was just not that big of a fan, but I'm really coming full circle and starting to enjoy it. So I think we're going to start with the Rotbier. And I did a video called What is Nürnberger Rotbier? Or was it Touring Nürnberg, Discovering Nürnberger Rotbier? I think that was the name of the video, which was where we paid a visit to Nürnberg with the Bad Seed guys. And we visit Brauerei Altstadthof and Schanzenbräu. And those are some of the more well-known producers of Rotbier. I think the probably most famous and big is Tucher Rotbier, but I was told to avoid it because it's the Heineken of Rotbier. Big brewed, big brewery. But basically, Nürnberg has its own beer style. And I think, was it at Schlenkerla we were told that in like recordings, history records and whatnot, it's mentioned the first place in Germany where lagering and lagerbier is mentioned is when making Nürnberger Rotbier in some historic records. So like that was the first mention of the lager in German history books, is some notes from some brewery in Nürnberg, which is kind of funny. So potentially the first documented lagered beer in Germany. Beer style. So it's a beer style that faded into obscurity and has had a renaissance a bit with the craft beer scene. So there's some more people into it. What you can expect is something that looks something like this. Red, kind of amber in color, and it's varying shades of reddish amber. It's lower strength than a Märzen, but it can be slightly similar to a Märzen. It has that darker malt character and often also a decent amount of hops, depending on the brewer. Some prefer to do it malty, some prefer to do it hoppy. And it was a counter beer to Hefeweizen, or what was historically called white beer in Nürnberg, which was top fermented. So this was the counter that was bottom fermented. And there's even rules in Nürnberg on how to make it. Like, you have to brew it with only barley malts. You can't use wheat malt and stuff like that in it. Kind of like with the Reinheitsgebot. I'm not sure if actually wheat malt is okay. You know, Weizens, you can see Weizens with the Reinheitsgebot statement on there, and it says beer. So, but yeah, bottom fermented, low temperatures, it's lagered. So yeah, and apparently at the peak of Rotbier brewing, which was in 1597, Nürnberg had 35 Rotbier breweries. That's insane. They do not have that many anymore. And then 11 white beer breweries. And it's, and apparently a wheat beer brewery as well. So white beer was probably not the same as wheat beer, because it's saying here that it's not necessarily the same, because they've done both wheat beer and white beer. So maybe white beer, it's not the same as, I guess, a Weizen, or maybe it's similar to wheat beer. I have no clue. I didn't do any research on that. I just had a look here about the Rotbier from Nürnberg, just to tell you guys a little bit about it. But I actually have some Rotbier to review on the channel from Nürnberg, from Schanzenbräu, which we visited, which we'll get to soon. So, yeah. Basically what you need to know, it's a reddish beer, and it's going to be malty, but it can also be hoppy. And Wagner says that there is also a little bit hoppy. So let's try the Kupferstich Rotbier. So again, it looks reddish like this, or if I hold it up to my shirt or something, but in reality the color is actually quite golden orange. Also lightly hazy, which could mean that this is unfiltered. No, it's not really that hazy. It's actually quite clear. There's just a little bit of something that looks like haze to it. But some root beers look like this. Some root beers are even more red. I remember we had the red Bock at Altstadthof, and that was like really red because it was a stronger beer. I guess they could use more malts. But like a modern attempt, I would bet a lot of brewers have tried to use the red X malt from Best Buds. But it looks nice. It's kind of reddish copper, and it's got a crazy lacing on the sides of the glass. Don't know if you guys can see that. But yeah, and that's off-white. Let's check out the aroma on the wood beer. Yeah, surprisingly hoppy. I don't know if that's just kind of like Wagner style, but it's not like all hops. It seems like a more sessionable version of a Märzen and something slightly more malt-rich than a Vienna lager. So that's kind of how you'd place it, I think. It's also hard to place when you're not like that familiar with it and you haven't had that much. And I think it was one of the issues with some of the guys from Bad Seed trying this. It's like, but what is this? This is not this style. This is not this style. And I was like trying to tell them, yes, it's not. It's a Rotbier. it's a Rotbier. That's what it is. But I do see similarities to the breadiness and richness of Märzen, and I do see similarities to like the hoppiness of some Vienna lagers. It's crackery. It's quite bready. It's got toffee, slight toasted nuttiness, and then a like floral, grassy hop bouquet. It smells really good. Let's try it. Cheers. Soft carbonation. Like a lot of people will associate this as dark beer, although it's not like that dark. But for a dark beer, this is really sessionable. Surprisingly bitter too. Quite nice high bitterness and high hop flavor. It's really hoppy. I think this might be more hoppy than the beers we had in Nuremberg, but I'm not entirely sure. I need to revisit the Schanzenboy soon just to compare, because when we had the Rotbiers in Nuremberg, that was like after a long day at Brauerei, a big beer brewery trade fair, and you're served beer there as well. So we had a day of walking around looking at equipment and all kinds of stuff, raw materials, whilst drinking beer. And then we went to the city to drink more beer. So it's also quite toasty. There's a toasty, almost roasty, not roasty, like toasted breadiness about it. But it's sharp, so it's a bit like roasted malt. So it could be coming from a small addition of a roasted malt, or maybe some kind of crystal malt, maybe some kind of caramel Munich malt, because it has like this really rich breadiness with toasty nuances, and then toasty nutty notes. Not loads of toffee, but a smidge. It feels a bit more sharp in its malt character and like toasty than like a Märzen, which is more, I think, sweet and bready most of the time. But really, really hoppy beer as well. Grassy, peppery, really, really peppery aftertaste. Black peppercorn, white peppercorn. Quite floral too. Loads of herbal spice as well. Like a really big, like classic Kräuter profile on the back end with the peppercorns. Yeah, but let's move on to the Richard Wagner Dunkel Lager. This is much stronger, 5.5% alcohol. And this was made for the 75th anniversary of Richard Wagner, I think. They brewed it for something, they've had good luck with making it for 5 years or something. It was made, for the 75th birthday of Richard Wagner. So a very special beer made for that occasion. And it's a Dunkel lager type, and it has a rich malty taste, but also hop aromas. It's like with nice fine hop aromas. They talk about that on all the beers, which is funny. And it seems like Wagner like to add a bit of extra hops to most of their beers, without it being too much. Like this is definitely more bitter than their like Helles, for example, but it's not like abrasive. But yeah, let's check out the Dunkel here. So pours really dark brown color. Oh, you can see that on camera. That's almost like you can't see through it. But it's actually also got reddish hues. And interesting enough, this looks similar to the Bock we had from Altstadthof, the Ruter Bock. It was this like really dark mahogany red color, which this is as well. The head on this one is also tan and like slightly tan, and with great lacing. Slightly, it's actually more of a beige, but it looks nice in the glass. Let's check out the aroma on the Dunkel Lager. Rich maltiness, loads of nuttiness, and also caramel and toffee nuances. It's definitely more towards sweeter, nutty, caramel kind of toffee vibes than the Rotbier, which is more like really toasty, bready kind of nuances. And yes, there's definitely some hops underneath as well. A fresh breath of like slightly floral hop aromatics, but this is all about malt on the nose at least. Let's give it a taste. Cheers. Ooh, good amount of hop character to that. I did not expect that from the nose. Oh, really floral elderflower hop character to this. See, that's so interesting. I think the reason why I disliked Munich Dunkel in the past was the Munich Dunkels I had were ones that were really sweet. Because you can get some varieties of Munich Dunkel lagers that are really sweet and like slightly buttery and like with the caramel malt and whatnot. And I never really fancied that too much. This is really good, but this is also really hoppy. I think that's the thing with Wagner in general, like quite hoppy beers, which is good in my book because that balances out like the density and sweetness of malt. But this would be so fun to serve to someone who is into classic Munich style Dunkel, who wants those more rich sweet ones. And then they have this, and this is dry. This is really dry. It feels like this is even drier than the Rotbier. And I think that's also because you get some dryness from the dark malts paired with the bitterness and the hops. So this is like the kind of Munich Dunkel I really can get behind. This is fucking great. Both are really nice, but I think maybe actually this one shines a bit more. Though you can't really compare, it's two different styles. But like lots of rich, toasty malt to this one as well, just like the Rotbier, but it has more of like pumpernickel breadiness and like darker breadiness. It has more nuttiness. It has like like touches of caramel, kind of toffee nuances, and then this like really hefty Munich malt character, like really, really rich Munich malt, kind of slightly decadent malt flavor, but all of those flavors are just like cut by bitterness and hops. It's like it doesn't get too cloying. It's because of the hops. This is highly sessionable. So like the hops come into play and finish with like a really nice bitterness, like bitter, spicy bitterness. Yeah, it's very nutty. And like almost like caramelized nutty notes or something like that, but like hefty, spicy, almost like pumpernickel with peppercorns or something like that. Because it has like a really rustic, bready, but really spicy bite to it. Like really spicy. But interestingly enough, like in the beginning, I was getting a lot of floral hop flavor, which has faded a bit in favor of spice. And I'm wondering if that's also because of malt. Wow, these are really good beers. I think Wagner is one of my favorite lager breweries in Franconia. They just make so many different beers, but pretty much all of them have been fantastic. Yeah, this is really good. This is a great Dunkel. Like if you think, or have an idea that Munich Dunkels get too like sickly sweet and whatever, try and get Wagner's Dunkel, and you'll experience something completely different because this is surprisingly hoppy. Just drink Wagner. This is fucking awesome. These guys are great. They are more clean. They're really clean, both of these. They don't have like that layered kind of slight yeast fruitiness as you get from some of the unfiltered lagers down there. They are a bit more classic in that approach with being, or classic, well, I guess like the unfermented or hazy, slightly Calabria type stuff is even more classic. But like they are more what do you think of when you think lager beers? They're filtered, crystal clear, but loads of layered hop flavors, malt flavors, everything. Just really, really good. And they're super clean, but so much layering to their beers. Like these, there's so many layers you can sit and sip on and think about, but you can also just crush them. Like I would crush either of these. They're just, I love that. Like they're so simple that you can just enjoy them and don't think about them. But if you want to, you can also think about them. And that's like the greatest lagers. They serve two purposes because most importantly, lagers need to be really refreshing and quaffable. But you can also get high complexities into them. That's when you have like the world-class combination, really. And then don't think like exploding flavors. Think soft complexities, which I've said numerous times. Soft complexities in lagers. But really, really good stuff in terms of grades. It's almost like a slight berry fruitiness to it now as well, the Rotbier. And almost a hint of coffee to the Dunkel. And then it's like, okay, and then the bitterness just comes in. Or red fruits. Really nice. In terms of grades, I think I'll score them the same. I like them equally. They're really good. Early 90s, like a 93, kind of something like that, maybe even 94. I don't think I'm as excited about them as with their pale lager beers, but they're still fucking great. But you have to be in the mood for hop-centric dark beers because they are quite hoppy. So really fantastic. One of the best breweries in Franconia in my mind, at least some of the breweries I discovered in recent times. This was a crazy long video. I got a lot of editing to do, but if you guys had a chance to try the Wagner Kupferstich Rotbier or the Wagner Dunkel, let me know what you thought of them. Great dark lager beers. And as always, remember to comment, subscribe, check the Facebook fan page, and Twitter and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in dark lager beers, and see you guys in another beer review.